Lucy returned home. She went to her son's wedding. She was only on a visit for a couple of days and spent 2 days on a road. She was coming home totally content. Her Jack made a good choice, and she saw that the newlyweds were in love. The woman lived in a small village. The next day, Elena, her neighbor, came running to ask questions, as all the news spread fast among people. Well, how was it? She was picking Lucy's brain. Elena's son left for the town and rarely visited her, so she took every opportunity to brag about how well he was doing, what a good job he had, and what a respected man he was in town. Yet he didn't really help his mother. That's why she loved to poke and pry. Were there many guests at the wedding? A neighbor wondered. There wasn't much of a wedding. They had a modest ceremony, Lucy answered. And my son had a marvelous wedding in the best restaurant. It happens once in a lifetime, Elena boasted. You didn't even go to his wedding, and your Harry is already divorced. Lucy shook her head. It was accidental, the neighbor pointed gloomily. She was a messed-up daughter-in-law. Nowadays, girls just want to find a husband. What about yours? She is a good girl, even though they don't have a chick wedding like your son, but it was intimate. Why waste money on such trivialities? The woman answered calmly. Elena started praising her son again. Everyone is always wrong for her, but everything that concerns her is great, and it doesn't matter that Lucy's son served as a sailor for 5 years, while Elena's son escaped to the city from the army and was somewhere in the markets reselling goods. But that's different for everyone. Every woman defends her children, even if it means exaggerating their merits. Lucy was just proud of her son. She didn't brag to anyone and didn't judge others. What's your daughter-in-law's profession? How did he meet her? Is she pretty? Elena kept asking questions. She works on the ship as a nurse. They met there. She is an ordinary girl. It's surely not for long, Elena concluded. He misses women at sea, so he took someone convenient. Wag your tongue. Lucy shook her head. You always have poor predictions. What's bad about meeting at work? Is it better to meet at the bar? Jack doesn't just throw himself at the first woman he meets. He won't marry out of boredom. I've seen them. They're happy. That's how she had to deal with a neighbor. The time passed. Jack's military service ended, and he and his wife returned to their native land. Now he could live with his family in a quiet environment. Mother was gladly waiting for her son and the new girl. They were the best family she had ever had. In preparation for the evening, the mother ran to the shop and bought food for the festive table. Elena looked at her jealously and fished for an invitation. She was curious to see the neighbor's daughter-in-law, but Lucy asked her to hold on off that for now. Give the children a chance to get some rest and make themselves comfortable. They've been on the train all day, then on the bus. Do you think they are so interested to see you now? The old woman explained to a clingy neighbor. Despite her friend's disapproval, Elena went to their house in the evening. She couldn't show her naughty neighbor out. She couldn't get rid of her anyway. Let's let her calm down and sleep tightly. I wanted to bake some pancakes, but I ran out of flour, Elena lied, and instantly slipped inside. Elena, come in, Jack invited her. You can eat Mom's patties with us, and I will introduce you to Lucy. The young man hospitably invited his neighbor into the hall, and the neighbor cocked her ears when she heard the girl's name. When she entered, she hesitated, looking at Jack's wife with fear. The girl was not an ordinary girl, as Lucy had told, but worse than she had ever imagined. She was lacking in beauty, unattractive and poorly dressed, despite the fact that Jack was a handsome and above-average-looking man. Plus, Lily had a big scar on her face. Elena didn't say anything. She just looked at her friend, while she was putting additional cutlery on the table, like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't noticed the mess her son had gotten himself into. Lucy was happy to be with her children. After they arrived, the young people immediately started looking for a job. Jack became a mechanic on the farm, and Lily became a nurse. The medical staff is always in demand, even more so in government institutions. Young people want to get better paid jobs and go to big cities, where there are more opportunities. Yet the young people decided to stay in Jack's native village, a house of their own. They are both very hard-working, and they are accustomed to working on the land. They worked a lot in their spare time. They were busy with the renovation of the house. The women were also working in the garden. As Lucy was waiting in line at the grocery store, Elena came up to her and started to ask her questions. Who your son has eyes on, his wife, she's so ugly, what a monkey. And the children will be the same, think about it. Tell your Jack to leave her before it's too late, she advised. What's the nonsense? They swore an oath to God. Why should he leave her when everything is fine? Everyone sees in others' sins he is guilty of. You see only what you see on the outside, but you don't bother to look inside, Lucy answered calmly. Elena gave up on her and circled a finger by a temple. She said that a bride poured something into her tea to make Lucy look like her. Elena couldn't grasp how can one love such a minger. From her point of view, something was not right here. Her Harry wouldn't subdue to any charms. To each their own happiness, Lucy smiled. Despite Lily's repulsive appearance, she soon earned the trust of the villagers. She was smart and knew her job well. Even Elena once had an appointment with her. Surprisingly, she cured her back and prescribed the right pills. However, the neighbor did not believe in the sincerity of the girl. She thought that it was an accidental help, and any doctor could just as well prescribe that treatment. She was looking for something bad to accuse the new nurse of. Yet Lucy and Lily got on well. She was easygoing, always listened to her husband, and treated her mother-in-law with respect. Behind her character, the old woman didn't notice her daughter-in-law's appearance. There are people who shine from within, and their appearance is not noticeable. Lily was such a person. She never refused to help anyone, and her husband was the apple of her eye. Jack was happy with his wife, too. He was a great man, a protector. In spite of what people thought of his wife, he was fine with it, because he lived with Lily, not them. Once, a terrible accident happened in the village in the middle of the day. A bathhouse caught fire. It was close to the hospital, and when Lily saw the fire, she pushed all the matters aside and went to the rescue. A lot of people gathered around, and everyone was staying with their mouths wide open. Then the folks started to groan and wail while someone hit upon bringing the bucket. It seemed to me that a girl had been seen, people whispered in the crowd. Did the parents leave and the child was left behind? That's when Elena showed up with her judgments. When Lily heard about a child, she pushed the onlookers away and went straight to the fire. The people gasped. They told her it was dangerous and that they had to wait for the firefighters. They were hinting at which part of the bathhouse the child might be. In just a minute, Lily jumped out of the fire, holding the little girl in her arms. The bathhouse was made of wood. It would have been destroyed by the fire instantly. The firemen would not come on time, and the little girl would have died if she had not got her out in time. Did you see that the fire didn't hurt her? Elena kicked one of the onlookers. "She's a witch!" In the evening, Lily was at the house of the rescued girl. The 5-year-old girl had a little smoke inhalation, but she wasn't injured. The girl, as a paramedic, came to see her, and the family invited her for tea. They thanked the girl for saving them, and were amazed that she was not afraid to go into the fire. "I was rescued from the fire once when I was little," Lily answered. "Fortunately, your child is safe." The girl told her story, how she practically died during the war. No one wanted this war. The people defended their homes, and the military searched for soldiers. The battles were going on, but the military and ordinary people were dying. During one of the battles, the hut where Lily and her family lived caught fire. The girl was 7 years old, and at that moment she was alone in the house. Soldiers were hiding in the village. They fell back and then occupied the village again. They found themselves under heavy fire, and at some point one of the soldiers realized that there was a girl in the burning house and rushed to save her. "A soldier carried me out of the house at the cost of his life." The girl shared her memories. "He handed me over to my mother, but he inhaled the smoke and collapsed. He didn't survive. He gave me this at the last moment, and it has been my talisman ever since." The girl showed her necklace with a pendant around her neck. William, the grandfather of the rescued girl, coughed and clutched at his heart. Lily rushed over to the old man, trying to help him. "It's fine," William said, clearing his throat. "What happened next?" he asked. "The soldiers occupied our village. We hid the boy of the soldier, and in the evening we buried him in our cemetery." "This is how you got the scars on your face?" the girl asked, approaching Lily. She nodded affirmatively. "You're still beautiful," the little girl assured her. "Do you know anything about this soldier?" daughter's mom asked. "He didn't have the credentials. We knew nothing about him. The soldiers didn't give up their positions for a long time. I think this man's comrades in arms never found out what happened to him." Philip. William reached for Lily's pendant with a trembling hand. His name was Philip. There was silence in the house. The girl's parents looked at the grandfather for sympathy. He didn't await his son from the war, as Philip had been reported missing. When the old man saw the necklace with a pendant, he understood who the story was about. It was to his son that he had given it before he left for duty. And now, after so many years, he had learned the bitter truth by chance. The small grain of hope that still lingered in him was now dead. Lily took off the necklace and handed it to the old man. "No, no." William squeezed her hand with the necklace. "You should keep it." He asked Lily for one thing: to show him his son's grave. "His mother has already met him in the afterlife, and I would like to visit his grave before I die." Tears streamed down the old man's cheeks. Later, Lily took William to the burial site, and he was able to lay flowers. The grandfather's son died saving a little girl, who always remembered the heroism of the unknown soldier and decided to dedicate her life to saving people. A generation later, she thanked her savior by doing the same brave deed, saving his sister's daughter. Nothing happens for nothing in life, and everything has a providence from above. Everyone comes into this world with a purpose and moves on after having fulfilled their duty. Thanks to such people who see into the human soul, Lily, in spite of her disfigured face, found her happiness as a woman and bound her life to medicine in order to help others.